Café and Networking, the podcast to connect and promote entrepreneurs and business experts. I'm Tom Reaoch, an American known as the King of Networking, connecting people and speaking from my studio in Campinas, São Paulo, Brazil. Today we're going to talk with Husein Achilov, and he's joining us from Guliston in Tajikistan. Husein and his brother Hasan are founders of the successful travel podcast, the Achilovs Twins Travel Show. And that's for those who love traveling, exploring new cultures, learning of the differences and similarities between other countries and their own. In each episode, they interview guests, sharing their country and culture. And we met recently on PodMatch Podcast Platform. Husein, congratulations on your podcast, but I'd like to know what inspired you and Hasan to start the podcast.
Thank you so much for having us, Tom. What inspired us? Back in the days when we were traveling, there was so much information about the country, TripAdvisor or some other apps, but we wanted something short and something about the culture. So that's one of the reasons why we have our podcast, because in 30 minutes you can learn about the culture, about the people, how they live there. So that's basically the idea behind that. And Hasan, do you have anything to say? Yeah, you're right. We didn't just wanted to know about where to go, what to see, what to try, but more about the culture. Mm-hmm. That's the reason why we started this podcast.
And hearing that from real people, right?
Yes, from locals, not from travelers review, but from locals.
Yeah, because many times we hear things from tour guides, but that's really part of their business for people who with feet on the ground.
Exactly.
Sometimes you get a different idea.
Yeah, it's too commercialized from tour guides.
So culture, when you do talk about culture, that too is expansive. There's a lot involved in culture of a country, right? And what are some of the topics that you mentioned in your podcast?
We talk about how people greet each other there, and also there's a question. We have 3 aspects of your culture to put in a time box. So it shows what they value and what they want to see in the future. And
good idea.
And also sometimes about the food, surprising thing. Yeah, some things that might surprise foreigners. So they can be prepared if they go there.
Very good. And how many episodes have you already made on your podcast platform?
So far, we've done 40 episodes.
All right. And how many countries have you mentioned on the podcast?
About 30 countries, because we have episodes with locals and also with expats. They share about the country from an expat's point of view. So some countries we've done like with an expat, and also with a local, like Estonia.
No, that's good, because there you really get 2 different views of the same country.
Yeah, that's interesting to see from both point of view.
And generally they're different, right?
Yes, they're very different, because an expat, he compares with his own country. So that's interesting to see that.
Now, both of you, you've traveled extensively, and you had the same feeling when you traveled to other countries. Sometimes you were surprised of things that you thought, but then actually saw, right?
Yes, exactly. Especially in Southeast Asia. In the Philippines, there's a thing called balut. So there's chick. It's hard to express that. That was a culture shock for us.
Well, I personally myself have had cultural shock, so I know that. When I came to Brazil, it was very shocking and it's hard to even explain what culture shock is to somebody who hasn't felt it.
Yes, you need to see that yourself.
Well, it's good. Well, I think following your podcast, you hope that people won't have the shock, right? You're actually helping them reduce the shock by having access and offering access to information, real information beforehand.
Yeah, at least just few things that they might be prepared for.
No, I think that the point that you mentioned about what would surprise people is interesting, and also the time box idea is great, because that too, there are people who would put different things into that time box, different people from the same country. So I think that's an interesting way of doing it. Well, for both of you, what are your plans for the future now with the podcast? Is continuing finding great guests?
Yeah, finding great guests, talk about their culture. And I think in the future we will do more cultural episodes. So we want to dig deeper Yeah, and learn more about the culture, because just 20, 30 minutes about the country is not enough usually.
Right.
So maybe we'll cover more cultural aspect of the country. Yes.
And for our listeners, all of your episodes, all of the interviews are in English, correct?
Yes, all of them are in English.
Yeah, because if we talk about English as a business language, English has also become the travel language. So for persons going out into the world, really to visit any country, English is the basis.
You know, that's what our students say when we ask them, why are you learning English? They say, because I want to travel. Most of them, they say that they want to travel to other countries, so they will need English in the future.
And I agree with you. I think that's the first thing I just say to people, even here in Brazil. If you don't know English, it's going to be very difficult. Not difficult, but it's better. Yes. The more you learn of a language, because there are more people in the whole world that speak English as a second language than even people who speak their own language. So you will always find someone somewhere who speaks some English.
Yes, exactly.
So very good. Well, I want to thank both of you for sharing your time with us today on Café and Networking, and again commend you for the work and dedication to the podcast and helping people learn about different cultures in different countries.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
And for our listeners, where can they find more about you?
They can go to our website. That's Achilovs.com, Achilov, Achilovs.com.
And they'll find more
also,
about you.
LinkedIn. Yeah, they can go to LinkedIn, Husein Achilov, and also Hasan Achilov. They can find about us in our website.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for being with us, and hope to be back with you in the future.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
And for our audience, I'd like to remind you again that you can find more about them at Husein Achilov, and it's Husein. It's Achilov. That would be on LinkedIn. And their site is Achilovs.com. And they are brothers. They are twins. It's Husein and Hasan. And you'll find more about them again at Achilovs.com. You'll find the interviews to the different podcasts. You also find them on Instagram and other social media. Café and Network is brought to us by Focus MI Market Intelligence, an agricultural market research specialist in Brazil, and more information on their website, which is focusmi.com. Thanks for listening. Until the next time here at Café and Networking Podcast.